It's hard to stick to a diet because I just made somebody breakfast and they're eating steam buns.
Hello friends, what's up? So today is another weigh-in video, and I'm also going to get into carb cycling and what I've been doing and how it's been working for me. So for the first part, the weigh-in, some things did actually change this time. My weight went down to 84 pounds, 184 pounds, which is about 83.8 kilograms. Have to check the conversions, don't remember it off the top of my head. And the other thing that changed is my waist. It went down a half an inch. So I'm at 32.5 inches. And the last number I recalculated my body fat percentage, and it went down to 34.4%. Now, some of the reasons my weight has changed is because, like I said, I've been doing the carb cycling for almost a month now, and I've stuck to it pretty well, I must say. I had a few slip-ups, but in the end, I think I hammered out what would work best for me in order to continue doing this. And like I said, I've also added in quite a bit of cardio now too. Running on the treadmill, doing more HIIT workouts, and sometimes adding in resistance training, but it's nowhere near as much as what it was before. Now, getting into carb cycling and what it is and how it's affected my weight is there are certain days where you intake a higher number of carbs, and then other days where you take in a moderate and low carb. So for me, I calculated everything, and what I would do is eat around 100 grams of carbs to 200 grams of carbs on my high carb days. For my moderate carb days, I would intake about 100 to 150 grams of carbs, and then low carb days would be no more than 30 grams of carbs. Starting all of this, it was quite a headache, and I did have a few slip-ups because there were things that I thought were low carb and would be completely fine, and then I checked the back of the package and I'm like, oh, this is not low carb. I can't have this on my low carb days, so I would have to find alternatives. Now, carb cycling is not anything new. I was looking online, and apparently quite a few athletes do this to have better performance during more intense trainings. And for high carb days, they would use this to kind of replenish themselves and I suppose restock. And so taking that into consideration, and for all of the information that I found online, I tried to plan my workouts around the high carb days, and I also chose high carb days in places where I thought I would be considering them as a cheat day. So for this little piece of paper, has all the calculations on it and when exactly I'm going to do high carb and low carb. But Mondays, high carb days, Tuesdays, moderate, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are all low carb days. Saturday is a high carb day, and Sunday is a low carb day. And something that I read on another website, it suggested not having high carb days back to back. So that's why I tried to plan it like this. And did I stick to this kind of schedule 100%? No. There was one week where I ended up switching Sunday to a moderate carb day and then making Tuesday a low carb day, and that was during one of the get-togethers that we had with family, and I didn't want to feel like I missed out, so I just switched it around to make sure that I was still sticking to it in a way that would work for me. And so that's why I planned it this way, but I made sure that it was still flexible enough, and watching closely, thinking, okay, if I'm not losing any weight or I'm not seeing any difference or I don't feel anything different, then I'm gonna switch it around. But I did notice some changes, so that's why I stuck to it like this. So during my high carb days, what I've been trying to do is more intense workouts. So before, when I was lifting weights quite a bit. The exercises and things that took a lot of work and effort were mainly my legs and also HIIT workouts. So on Mondays, I planned on working on my legs. On Fridays, I would do HIIT. And on Tuesdays, during my moderate carb days, I would work on my abs because my heart rate wouldn't get too high when I was working on other things like my arms or abs or even back. So that's why I worked it out like this, just planning the carbs that I would intake during the most intense points of my workout. Now, I did end up having to switch this around because after doing the in-body scale, I saw that I did have quite a bit of visceral fat. And like I mentioned in the last video, with that, the best way to get rid of it is by doing more cardio and HIIT. So now that I've implemented that, mostly what I do is running or jogging on the treadmill or even walking at quite an incline during Mondays and Saturdays. So those would be my most intense. And then on the other days, I would throw in some HIIT because I still need to mix it up, making sure that my body is not getting used to the same exercises. And that was a real big concern recently because I have been jogging a lot more. And most of the other days, I jog only maybe 30 minutes and then I go and do a HIIT workout. And today, actually, I was a little bit worried that my body was getting used to the exercises. So I'm trying to be a bit creative and switching it up between cardio machines, because the problem is once your body adjusts, it's gonna get harder to lose the weight. And that leads me into the next point of body types. So the reason I decided to add an extra cardio and also doing the carb cycling is because apparently my body type is endomorph. And what that means is it's a little bit more difficult, or a lot more difficult, for me to lose weight. My metabolism is a little bit slower and my body is really good at adapting to whatever I'm doing. So if I'm doing intense exercise, I might lose weight pretty well at the beginning and then it would slow it down or even stop, which it has been. And then it's really great at storing fat apparently. And that's why after figuring out my body type, I decided to give this a try. I think it does help quite a bit actually if you are on your weight loss journey to figure out what body type you are, because it will still give you an idea or even new perspectives about maybe I could try out this diet because it's worked for other people with my body type, and just really experimenting, especially if you're stuck in a weight loss plateau, to kind of figure out how to get yourself out of it. And that's exactly how this has worked for me. It did make me more open-minded to trying carb cycling, and I am seeing an effect with it, a pretty good effect with it. And I do see myself continuing with this. So that's why I do think that if you are struggling, maybe just take a quick quiz. You can find many of them online and see what body type you are, see what diets or exercises that it suggests you to do. And if you haven't tried it before, give it a shot. Now, during my carb cycling, was I perfect? 100%? No, I wasn't. There were days where I thought I was eating low carb things, and then I checked it on the application that I've been using, and it said high carb or avoid. And the application that I've been using is one for keto, and it grades it from avoid to moderate or limit, and then also safe. I think that's what it is. I think it says safe. But anyway, so if it's green, I will eat it. If it's red, then I have to avoid it on my low carb days. Now, there were certain things that I thought were low carb that turned out they were not. For example, my coffee. I absolutely loved my coffee. Drink it every single morning, and I didn't bother checking the back of it because I didn't think that the coffee would be high in carbs. But it turns out it was, and the amount of coffee that I was drinking was worth about half of the carbs that I was allowed to intake during my low carb days. So I did notice that when I was stuck in that moment, well, I did notice that when I was consuming more carbs, that my weight was staying the same for the first 2 weeks because I was still trying to figure everything out. But then once I found the coffee that was higher in carbs, so I wasn't exactly following my low carb days. Once I did figure it out, my weight started coming down. So I'm gonna stick to this a bit longer, seeing how it goes, and then I'm gonna readjust the high carb and low carb days if I need to. Because I do think that one of the other problems I might be having is that the moderate carb day is right next to a high carb day. But usually on my moderate carb days, I only have like a high carb breakfast and then the rest of it is low carb for the rest of the day. So that's why I think I'll stick to this a little bit longer and then see if I have to adjust later. I am pretty excited that I've figured this out, and I'm hopeful that it is going to continue to work for me. And I think this whole experience did open my mind up more, because at the beginning I was pretty closed off about it, because when I did try keto before, I ended up getting headaches and my body just was not reacting the best way, and I think I was also pretty grumpy as well. So I wasn't a fan of keto, and when I started this, I was a bit more closed off for it because I don't like the idea of low carb days. But I think now that my body has adjusted to it better, and I worked on keeping an open mind throughout this whole process, then it turns out it's not as bad as what I thought it would be at the beginning. That's why I can see myself continuing with this for even longer. And it's also nice because during those high carb days, I don't feel like I'm deprived. But there are moments during those other days where I'm on my low carb days and nobody else is eating low carb. So I see others, especially David, eating rice cakes or any of my other favorite foods. And I'm like, oh man, I'm so jealous. Give me a bite, give me a bite. So it does.
This is one of the moments that it's hard to stick to a diet, because I just made somebody breakfast and they're eating steam buns. I really want it, but I have my smoothie waiting for me on the counter.
And it does take a lot of willpower to stick to the diet during the low carb days. Anyhow, I'm gonna continue sticking to this now that I've figured out where some of the issues during my low carb days came from. And I'm gonna see how well it works well into December, because I do wanna stick to this a lot longer to see if it's actually working for me and if I can figure out if there's anything that I'm doing wrong, because not exactly perfect at it yet. All right, that is all I wanted to talk about in this video. If you guys found this video enjoyable, don't be afraid to hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on the next one. Okay, that is it for today. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.